What's going on, guys? Ultra Anastasio here with FlytPath.com, and it is finally here, the new DJI Action 2. Now, we've all been waiting for it because the Osmo Action 1, if you guys are familiar with my channel, you guys know that this is pretty much my favorite action camera, pretty much all-purpose camera that I've had since it came out, and I would still use this one more than any of the other action cameras on the market. Now, speaking of those other action cameras, we of course have everything from the Insta360 Go 2. This is probably one of my favorite ones as well. Then we have the Insta360 One-R. We have, of course, the GoPro Hero 10. And I'm bringing this one back out, the GoPro Session. The Action 2 reminds me so much of this Session, and this was definitely a very popular camera. Now, the main reason why I bring out all these cameras here is because the DJI Action 2 is pretty much a combination of all of these cameras in this system right here. Now, I've actually been testing out the Action 2 for the past few weeks now, and to be honest with you, when I first got it, I didn't know how to use it, in a sense that I was so used to using the Osmo Action 1. I just thought it would be a bumped up version of this, but it was a completely different experience. And then what they did is they brought in a modular system very similar to how the Insta360 One-R is, and put together this right here, which is the DJI Action 2. So in this video, let's go through all of those new features of the DJI Action 2, the modular and magnetic system, also the video quality, how does it compare to all these other cameras, and of course stabilization. There's a huge feature on here that I really enjoy, something that some of the other cameras have, but now it is built in. You don't need any special lens or software for it to run, but we'll talk about that in this video. And if you guys are new to my channel, my name is Ultra Anastasio. I do a lot of drone tech tips, tutorials, and product reviews right here on this channel. So if that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing and also hitting that bell to be notified when I post new videos. So let's quickly jump into the top features of the DJI Action 2. The Action 2 can shoot 4K at up to 120 frames a second. Next, we have a 155-degree field of view, one of the biggest changes from the Action 1 that everyone wanted, especially myself. We wanted that super wide field of view, and we do have it now on the Action 2. And as you can see, this is now modular. You have a camera here at the front, you have a touch screen, an OLED touch screen on the very back, you have your record power button on the very top. Now, as far as combos go, the DJI Action 2 does come in two separate combos. The first is right here is the dual screen combo, and that has your camera, which does have the back screen, and this one right here, which is a battery pack as well as a screen on it. So once you hook this up together, now you're able to have dual screens. So you have a screen here on the front, as well as a screen there on the back, which is on the back of the camera. And the other option is this one right here, which is the power combo, which is the same thing. You have a camera and screen on the back of this one, and the bottom portion, or the power combo, is really just a battery pack that's attached here with no screen. So you plug that in here, and now you have extra battery. You just don't have that dual screen option. As far as storage goes, the camera by itself does have an internal 32 gig memory. And when you do clear out the internal memory, it actually only gives you about 22.4 gigs remaining to actually use for your photos and videos. So it is using about 10 gigs for that actual software in the camera itself. And then of course, if you want to expand out that storage, you're gonna need to add in a SD card or memory card up to 256 gigs on either the battery, the power combo right here at the very bottom, or if you have the dual screen combo, you do have the micro SD card available here at the very bottom of this one. This will allow you to expand out that memory of the camera, and then you're able to choose whether you want to record everything internal, swipe it over, or record to your SD card. Now, whichever combo you get, you actually get the same accessories. The first one is this right here. It is a magnetic lanyard. Second one is called the magnetic adapter. Put the camera right here on top. It has that two-prong setup. So if you have a lot of action cam accessories, you'll be able to use this on a lot of those existing mounts. Next is we have my favorite one, which is a magnetic, but it has a ball joint on it as well as a 1/4-20. And of course we have a USB-C for charging and downloading all of your footage to your computer. Now, one of the biggest new features of the Action 2 is this whole magnetic system. Right here we have the screen combo. So it does have these magnets here on the very bottom, and I was always kind of worried about just having magnets keeping my camera together, but here what they did is for added security, they have these hooks here on the side, both on left and the right. And what you do with these hooks now is that you have the magnet as well as the hooks in there, so these do not separate and come apart. Now that lanyard also lets you do things like this. So if you're familiar with the Insta360 Go 2, all you do is put this on the inside of your shirt, pop this on top, have your camera now, magnet right here, and then you're able to do a bunch of different things, hands-free type of activities. The next accessory is the magnetic adapter, and like I mentioned, once you hook up your camera to the adapter itself, you can hook this up to pretty much any of those action camera mounts with that two-prong setup right there. And this next one is my favorite one, is magnetic with a ball joint. So it has a 1/4 at the very bottom. If you have an existing tripod or a little, mini tabletop selfie stick or tripod, all you do is hook this up here, screw it on, and this is probably one of my favorite setups like this. Just a small little handheld camera, and then this actual DJI extension pole goes out just a little bit, so if you wanted to vlog with it and then put it on the table just like that. This is probably one of my favorite accessories that they have available for the Action 2. Now, one of the biggest drawbacks of this, still probably one of my favorite action cameras, the Osmo Action, one of the drawbacks was the field of view just was not wide enough. Every time you want to use this to vlog, you're really kind of just getting your head in the shot. So when they did release the Action 2, that was of course one of the biggest things and most probably top request I would say from all the reviewers was it needs to be extremely wide. And to be honest with you, I think wide field of view is good enough. When I'm just hand holding it, it actually does get a lot in the shot. But if I am doing something that I want to get, an even wider shot, doing something that's a little bit more action sports, or if I'm having this thing hooked up to my body, I do want that ultra wide. So that 155 degree really comes into play when you are in close proximity to your camera, or you just want a very immersive type of look. You have that view now, that ultra wide view on the Action 2. If you are familiar with the GoPro Hero 9, you do have horizon leveling on it. Now, if you actually shift your camera all the way around, it'll maintain that horizon even if you're doing 360s. But the thing with the GoPro, you would have to have this right here, which is that max lens mod on the top. And that's very similar to what the Go 2 has. You can actually move this all the way around if you're shooting in pro mode on the Go 2. Spin the Go 2 all the way around and it wouldn't even look like you're spinning it. However, the only way you're able to achieve that is by taking the footage from the camera and running it through Insta360 Studio. The great thing about the new Action 2 is that now at 2.7K, everything is actually done internally on the camera itself. So if you want to maintain what they're calling horizon steady, all you have to do is put it down to 2.7 at 30 or 60 frames a second, turn on horizon steady, and depending on how you have your action camera, you can point it upside down, turn it all the way around, you can run with it, you can move it around, and that horizon will stay nice and flat. Now, as far as an action camera goes, of course, you want it to be waterproof, and this main unit here is waterproof. You are able to take this into the water up to 10 meters. However, you are not able to use it with the battery pack or with the extra screen here. These are not waterproof if you're just holding it like this. However, DJI does sell a waterproof housing if you wanted to have that LED screen on the front or that extra battery pack. But it's good to know that this by itself, what I would normally do is just hook this up to my tripod and I'm able to go swimming, take this underwater with me without any problems because this by itself is waterproof. Now, one thing I did notice is that when I did get my first production unit of this camera and I used the underwater housing, it did produce some heat inside of that housing, and I did get some heat warnings here on the back. Now, I've had a few firmware updates since, and I do want to take this back out into that housing, I think just because it's in that waterproof housing, and I was also shooting at a higher frame rate. I was shooting at 4K at 120. I think it just, picked up a lot more heat because it's being enclosed. So I do want to test out a little bit more, but since then I haven't seen that heat warning come up ever since I did one of their most recent firmware updates. Now, as far as video quality goes, on par with a lot of the other action cameras, especially the latest GoPro Hero 10. I did put these side by side with the original Osmo Action, GoPro Hero 10, a couple footage with the GoPro 9, as well as the Insta360 Go 2. Now, as far as video resolution goes, the GoPro does shoot at higher resolution, 5.3K at up to 60 frames a second. It It also has 4K at 120. The Action 2 does shoot at 4K at 120, and the Go 2 can shoot up to 1440 at 50 frames a second. Now, when it comes to slow motion, like I mentioned, it does shoot up to 120 frames a second at 4K, which is really nice. But not just that, you also have the wide field of view. So if you are able to get closer to your subject, get immersed a little bit more, do some pullback shots at 120, very dramatic types of shots, especially with that wide field of view. Shooting at 120, of course, slowing that footage down. Now, as far as audio goes, the Go 2 has one mic on it. The GoPro Hero 9 has 3 mics. And when you have the combo with the screen, you actually have 4 mics attached to the Action 2. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. We have the GoPro Hero 9 right now. This is how the GoPro Hero 9 sounds. How does the audio sound out of the GoPro Hero 9? And we have the new Osmo Action 2. This has 4 microphones. The GoPro has 3 microphones. How does the audio sound on the Osmo Action 2? And finally, we have the Go 2. How does the audio sound on the Insta360 Go 2? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Once again, the GoPro Hero 9. How does the audio sound here? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Right now, we go back to the Osmo Action 2. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. How does the audio sound? And finally, we go over back to the Go 2. A nice feature that they added onto the Action 2 is the ability to digitally zoom in when using the camera, whether you're in photo or in video mode. Right now I'm in video mode and I'm able to zoom in all the way up to 4 times zoom, and I'm shooting at 4K at 30 right now. If I switch that over into photo mode and a little scroll comes up and I'm able to go in 4 times digital zoom on photo as well as 4 times digital zoom on video. Now when it comes to image stabilization, we do have Rocksteady, which they introduced on the Osmo Action 1. We still have that here, an enhanced version of Rocksteady on the Action 2. Now, as far as battery life goes, it says it's rated for 70 minutes, but it's also shooting at 1080 at 30 frames a second. It was kind of hard for me to gauge, which I'll probably have to do a separate test on that. As far as how much I'm really getting, because I'm kind of all over the place. I'm shooting for a short amount of time, long 4K, 120. So I definitely will have a separate battery test video, but they are rating just the unit alone, 70 minutes, but when shooting at 1080 at 30 frames a second. Now, if you have the screen combo, you're able to now hook that up and it's rated to get 160 minutes if you have this combo right here. And if you have the battery combo, you're able to get 180 minutes. Now, when it comes to different types of accessories, I of course showed you the ones that it did come with, the lanyard, but it actually have a few different ones that DJI does sell. And this one right here is the mount where you're able to hook this up to something like a window. So if you wanted to use this in your car, you're able to mount it, a little sticky back right here, mount it to your window. And like I said, I like to use the ball joint, so you just kind of move this around. So if you wanted to hook this up. DJI also has this one right here, which is a head strap with a magnet on it. And I was actually able to use this one while I was going on a roller coaster. But same thing, you're able to use this as a head strap, hook up your camera right here to the very front of it, just like so. Put this on your head, and now you have a head strap for your Action 2. This next accessory is a really nice one too, because all you do is hook up your ball head magnet to the top of this little selfie stick, turn this around, point this back just like that, and now you're able to trigger the power button from your thumb here while the camera is a little bit further away. Now, being so used to the Osmo Action 1, there was definitely some things that the Osmo Action 1 has that I was really missing on the Action 2. If you guys are familiar with my videos, I will always talk about this right here, that quick switch button. And this is probably the main reason why I love the Osmo Action 1 the most. And if you guys aren't familiar with the quick switch, basically it lets you set specific profiles of shooting modes that you would normally shoot, and you would be able to easily and quickly quick switch through them. You can store up to 5 profiles on here and quickly switch through those, which I would normally always do in the field. The next thing that was a little bit different was just getting used to the form factor. Like I mentioned, I was so anticipating a form factor like an original Action camera. It did take me some time to get used to something different. Now, it is different in the sense of not just being like the Insta360 1R where it's modular, but this isn't waterproof. You actually have to have this whole thing put together to be waterproof, but it's a mix of being modular, and then it's a mix of the Go 2. So, you know, if you're used to the Go 2, I think then you will be very accustomed to the Action 2. Another thing I had to get used to was the fact that it's just like the Go 2 as far as when you're done shooting with it and you want to charge it, you can't just plug in a USB-C to the side of the thing and start charging it up. You have to have the screen with the battery port right here, that USB-C port, this one or the actual battery one. So that did take a second to get used to. It would have been really nice if there's a USB-C directly on here. That way I can just worry about this alone. I could charge it whenever I want to, but of course, you also might lose the ability to have it waterproof. You know, maybe they can make a little door or something, very much how the original GoPro Session was. It had a little door on there where you're able to put in a micro SD and charge it. Maybe the next version, they're able to do that. That way you're able to do everything off of the main camera. If you want to charge up your Action 2, or you want to add expansion as far as memory goes, all of that happens in the extra battery bank or the screen, as well as the one over here. You can't do it off of the main unit. Now, one of the most obvious concerns, of course, is this right here. You do have the removable lens on some of the Action cameras, even the Action 1. You're able to take this off if you were to use this in some extreme conditions. Just know that, of course, you're not able to replace that glass like you're able to do on some of the other Action cameras. But if you are the type to use this camera or this camera in general in extreme conditions, if you're using it on biking and you're mounting it and you're crashing, of course, you're gonna put it at a lot higher risk. But just for everyday use, they said that this glass can take more than enough for everyday types of use. Now, with that said, the one thing you might want to look into is the DJI Care Refresh program. Now, I know we talked about the Care Refresh when we talk about drones, because of course drones, when you put that up in the air and you're trying to fly around certain objects or close to things, you normally are prone to possibly clip the drone or have an accidental damage. So if you do have an accidental damage on your Action 2 and you've signed up for the 1-year plan, you're able to get 2 replacements within that 1-year plan for a small fee. And if you sign up for the 2-year plan, you're able to have up to 3 replacements of the Action 2. I'll make sure all that information is down below in the video description, so make sure you guys check that out if you are looking at some of these. Like I said, I'd probably recommend getting or looking into that care refresh program because of the fact you're not able to change out that glass or have a protective glass on it. So if you are that type to use it in extreme conditions and you probably are a little bit more prone to getting this thing damaged, you might want to look into that protection plan. The next thing they can improve on, which they actually did in a firmware update, which is kind of surprising, was that what's interesting is when you are using the camera and you drain the battery on this camera and you plug these together, now this unit is going to start charging the main unit. And while this is charging, as you can see here, the green light, it's charging now the main unit. It can get a little bit warm. Now, when it's also plugged in, it gets a little bit warmer. So the one thing is, on their next version, I kind of would have liked to see the texture of the original Osmo Action on here, because the aluminum, while it's nice to look at, I feel like the grip on the original Osmo Action was a lot better, especially if you're going to be using this out in the water. I have a lot better grip with the Osmo Action compared to this, and I think maybe that rubber grip might help with a little bit of that heat as far as touching the camera goes. Now, when it comes to the different shooting options, you're able to toggle through them by double pressing this top button here on the Action 2. When you double press, you're able to cycle through photo, video, quick clip, slow motion, time lapse, and it's a little bit different though when you're using the DJI Mimo app. Now, while all those settings are the same in the Mimo app, there's a couple other ones that are also present because some of the menus on the actual Action 2 itself are tucked away within another menu. Like for instance, they have hyperlapse displayed here on the app, but hyperlapse is actually under the time-lapse feature on the Action 2 camera. Once you launch the Mimo app, on the right-hand side, you can see here I have hyperlapse, I have time-lapse, slow motion, video, quick clip, photo, as well as live stream. They do give you some options to live stream through Facebook, YouTube, a couple other options here. So live streaming is available on the Action 2. Now, I'm actually gonna have a separate video walking you through the Mimo app because there's a lot of features in here that we'll go through, which I'm not gonna go through in this video. Now, as far as the menu on the Action 2 itself, I'll just kind of go through some basic stuff. But like I said, I'm gonna have a separate video going in a lot more detail on this thing. But I just wanna show you as far as some of the basic swipes and what you're gonna see on the back of the screen. When you swipe down from top to bottom, it brings up the preferences and all of the settings on here. You'll be able to swipe left to right, change from pro mode, turn voice on, check your exposure as far as your brightness goes. Also, there's some preferences in there. If you swipe from right to left, this is where all of your exposure values as well as how wide the lens you want to use. So for instance, if I want to change my exposure, you're able to do that here. Leave it at auto for now. And also if your field of view, if you want to go from standard to wide and to super wide, depending on what resolution you're shooting at. Right now I'm just in photo mode, so it is giving me some limitations there. But also you can change your formatting from photo mode from JPEG to RAW if you want to do that there. So right now I'm in photo mode. If I move it over into video mode, you're gonna see a couple other different settings in there. So like I mentioned, if I go here, now I'm in video, I can go into wide or ultra wide. So very similar, but just depends on which mode you're in, on what menu you're gonna get. Swiping from bottom to top, I'm able to see now how to change your resolution. So I can go 4K, I can bring it all the way down to 1080p if I want to. And from left to right, if I swipe from left to right, it brings up my preview so I can see what I shot last, as well as all of the other images and photos that are on my camera roll. Like I mentioned, there's a lot more to this, so of course I'm going to be going through it in a separate video, as well as the DJI Mimo app, so make sure you guys check that out. But overall, super impressed with how DJI is continuously pushing the boundaries, not necessarily sticking into just one frame. This is only the second version, so they literally went from a traditional style action camera into something completely different. Now, I still love the original Osmo Action for all the same reasons I've talked about in the past, but this thing, just how compact it is, how universal it is, the wide field of view and that horizon steady makes this thing just something that you're always gonna wanna have in your pocket, because you know that wide field of view, you could pretty much get everything. You now have 4K at 120, that horizon steady. So even if you're moving all the way around, it'll keep it nice and flat. The compact size of this thing alone, this is easily stick this into your pocket. If you don't want to carry a tripod, this is all you have to carry around to capture some footage. You do have all those cool features as far as the magnets go, so you are able to stick this thing pretty much wherever because it's so tiny. So hopefully you guys were able to get some value out of this video, and if you did, a big like would be much appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when I post new videos, because I am going to be coming out with a lot more in-depth comparisons as well as in-depth walkthroughs of the application of the Mimo app on the Action 2. Thanks again for watching, guys. This is Ultra Nastasio with FlytPath.com. I'll see you guys out there with the DJI Action 2. Take care.